Good morning, everyone. My name is Doris Rodriguez, and we'll start in just a few moments while we give people a moment to get us situated. So if you need to get anything, please do so now. We'll start in a couple of minutes. I also want to announce that this presentation is available with automatic closed captioning. Additionally, we are providing simultaneous interpretation in Spanish this morning, for which I will now provide instructions for our Spanish Zoom attendees to join. Hoy y siempre brindamos servicios de interpretación simultánea para nuestros eventos igual en persona o en Zoom. Favor de hacer clic en el globo al fondo de su pantalla a donde dice interpretación. Luego haga clic en el idioma que desea escuchar, en este caso español. Si quiere escuchar solo el intérprete, puede también hacer clic en Mute Original Audio, que silenciará el audio original. Muchísimas gracias y de nuevo bienvenida a Sinergia. Before we begin, I want to let you know that we'll be broadcasting today's event live via our Facebook page. So I will start that now. If you can just give me 1 second. All right. So I want to give a warm welcome to those joining us there. A few housekeeping notes. Everyone who registered via Zoom will receive a copy of the presentation slide via a follow-up email within the next few days. A survey will be shared in the chat at the end of the presentation. We will have time at the end for Q&A, so we encourage questions at any time. However, please remember this is a public forum and we are being broadcasted on Facebook. Once again, my name is Doris Rodriguez, and I'm the Autism Initiative Coordinator here at Synergia's Metropolitan Parent Center. A few words about Synergia's initiative. It is funded by a grant from New York City's council under its Autism Initiative. This project supplements the work of Synergia's Metropolitan Parent Center by bringing an increased awareness to New York City residents, particularly to the communities with large Spanish speaking populations, about the growing number of children diagnosed with autism. A strong outreach component targets families of children with suspected or known diagnosis of autism who are not receiving appropriate educational, health, and other related services. This initiative will link them to other services and supports them meet the individual needs of children and their families. Once again, I want to thank you for joining us. We are glad that you chose to be here with us. We have so many questions, so I'll let you get into it. And for those joining us via Facebook Live, if you have questions, please place them in the comment section. So I'll hand it over to you, Paola. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to be here today. Thank you, Synergia, for inviting me. I have been collaborating with Synergia for many, many years. I lost count, which is a good thing. Thank you to the families that have made time to be here today. A few things that I want to point out. I'm going to go really fast. And the purpose of these presentations is really for you to have an overview regarding special education. So you will learn your rights and you will learn what to ask to the school. And you will also learn when to reach out for services in terms of like representation, legal services. My name is Paola Martinez Boone. I'm a senior advocate and special coordinator at New York Lawyers for the Public Interest. The New York Lawyers for the Public Interest is a nonprofit legal organization. I want to repeat that. We are a nonprofit legal organization under the Disability Justice Program. We focus in protecting the rights of people with disabilities. In the context of special education, we protect the rights of students with disabilities while in school, and we represent clients from beginning to end to cases. But once again, most importantly here is that we're going to learn a lot today so you can be a fearless advocate for your child. These are some of the things that our program does. I'm not gonna focus on that because I want to focus on the topic, which is special education. What is a special education? A special education is not a place. It's a set of services individually designed. And we need to be clear about that. I know many of you already are very, very experienced. Your child has been a recipient of special education services for many, many years, and you understand that it's a set of services. But we also have a lot of parents who are new to the system, and I want those parents to understand that it's not a place, it's a set of services. What is IDEA? That is the federal law that protects children's rights to a free and appropriate public education. So all of us always focus when we are asking the school and we are advocating on your behalf on a free and appropriate public education. So let me also mention here for parents who are advocating for their child, the obligation of New York City public schools is not the best education. And I know as a parent, sometimes that doesn't sound good. Like, I'm a parent myself, I want the best education, but that's different from the legal obligation, which is an appropriate education and in a least restrictive environment, meaning that the law requires that students with disabilities, when it's appropriate, to be integrated with other students. Obviously, that's not the case for every student with disabilities, but that's the law. FAPE means that it's free, no expense to you in whichever system. Appropriate means appropriate for your child. And this is important because I have families who call us for services and they describe their child and they want the services that somebody else's have. That's a good place to start because that will open the window for you to understand what exists. But that doesn't mean that your child will get the same things because maybe your child have different things. It could have the same diagnosis, the same classification, but the set of services might be different for your child. So I always talk to families and say, focus on your child. And this happened. I even have twins, same diagnosis, same classification, different set of services. So focus on each child. Public means under the direction of New York City public schools, and students with disabilities, like any other students, could be in a school from kindergarten to 12. Okay, who is a child with a disability? This is a definition now. And I want you to pay attention because diagnosis may not be enough. I have clients who actually have kids who are diagnosed with disabilities that are not obvious: depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, and a diagnosis, it might not be enough because you may have a disability, but you might not need services. Also understand that a child with disabilities, as is defined by IDEA, is a student with an impairment who need a special education or related services as a result of that impairment. A child may have an impairment, but if that's not interfering with the education, they might not be entitled to a special education. Also, diagnosis is different from classification. What we're talking here on the IDEA is classification, and it's only 13 of them. I know many kids have more than one diagnosis, and parents often call me and said, well, but they only put autism, but he has behavioral issues, ADHD, sleep apnea. Like, that's all medical diagnosis. What this school system is looking at, the classification that is interfering with the education. That's what they're going to look at. Another parenthesis here: if you are a parent of a child with disabilities and your child is in a school and receiving services, always evaluate outside of the school. I have parents who call me and the child is 14, 15. They have never done an outside evaluation. So it's a lot of things going on with this child, and the Department of Education is not in charge of the medical part. They're only in charge of the educational part. So if there other stuff medically that may be affecting education, you need to go outside and have a doctor, a neurologist, do a neuropsychological, do a developmental disability, see a developmental disabilities doctor, so you can learn more about this child. Department of Education have a lot of applications, but they're sort of limited. If you bring more information, that will be beneficial in order to create a plan that is going to be better for your child. So don't wait until your child is 14, 15, and he's been passing or she's been passing alone. When, if you have more information that you can bring to the table, that could be a game changer for your child. Classification should not determine placement. So for example, a very common classification is autism. That doesn't mean that that child only gonna be amongst other kids with autism. Why is that? Because when Department of Education or New York City Public Schools evaluate your child, they need to look at what this child needs and what setting is gonna be the most appropriate. For many, I have many students who are in integrated co-teaching in a community school or in a 12 one-to-one class. While there may be another student classified with autism that is in a District 75 because it's a specialized district and they will need more services. So once again, because your child is classified with autism doesn't mean that he only is gonna go or be with other kids with autism unless that is the best appropriate setting for that student, okay? And the goal is always a free and appropriate public education in a least restrictive environment. Who is entitled to special education? A student who has a disability and requires specialized modified instruction. Very simple. Included those students with physical disabilities or emotional disabilities that are not obvious. I already said this, okay? Who is involved in special education process? Who's part of that team? You. Please, you. I don't want any parent to withhold information when they're going to an IEP meeting. This is your opportunity to talk about your child, how she's doing at home, what works for him or her, what doesn't. Even when we represent parents during IEP meetings, when we prepare the families, I always tell them, I already read the 500 pages of information you sent me, but I'm not gonna pretend that I know about your child more than you do. You have the most information, so you're gonna talk. If I need to add something, I will add something, but you're gonna be the primary person talking to this team, okay? Who is part of the team? The child. And this basically when the kids are a little bit older and they're able to participate in their own IEP and they're able to tell us, this is what I want, this is not what I want, and so on. Also the school-based support team. This used to be called the IEP team, but now it's called the support team. And if you call it attending a community school or District 75, then it's going to be the teacher, the psychologist, if there is one, the social worker, the guidance counselor, if your child receives therapies, a speech therapist, occupational therapist, everyone who has something to do with your child will be there, or they will send a report to be read during the meeting. If your child attends charter school or non-public school and private school, then it's going to be with someone from the committee on special education. Okay, what is the process? So once again, if your child is a recipient of special education services, you already have been to this process. Your child has been identified. There has been a referral and consent, meaning that there was already documentation that you signed in order to evaluate. There have been evaluations, and then it will be eligibility determination, meaning after evaluations, they're gonna look at the results and they're gonna decide if your child is eligible for services or not, and what type of services those are. And also after that, then it comes the IEP development. After the IEP development comes placement. Now, if you are new to the system, you probably didn't realize that this was like the process. And I don't want you to be confused about this process, but I want you to also realize is that there are many kids that have not gone to the process, but they will need to be in the process even though they are still in school. If they don't have an IEP, and I have a call last week, there's a student that has been struggling and she's already 14, and the mother never triggered this process because she thought that, the school, if they notice something, they're going to do something. Well, the school didn't do anything, but she didn't do anything either. So once again, if you realize that your child is struggling, and your child is in first, second grade, and let's say this is one of three, and you're here because you have one with autism, but the other one has not been identified, you can always call the school and ask to start this process to investigate a little bit more if your other child needs special education services. But this is the process. What are the different systems? This is important because sometimes we set up our kids to school, set and go, and we don't understand what systems assist. So there's the district schools, and they also are called community schools. They are geographic schools. They are schools in your neighborhood in which a lot of the kids will go, will walk, will take the bus. These all are district schools. That's schools 1 to 32. So literally, most of the kids will go to the neighborhood schools. Now, if your child has an IEP, and for example, the school is 1 block down, is not able to serve that IEP because your child needs a class of 12 students, then they will offer you a different school, maybe further, maybe in a different part of the town. So your child may need busing, but those are still district schools. Now we have the specialized school districts, and that is District 75. So District 75 is not a geographic district. Kids who actually attend District 75, they usually travel to other further because the focus here is to make sure that they will be following an IEP that is really, really specific for this student. So many District 75 schools are inside other schools. So sometimes if you have more than one child, you go to the same door, you don't realize that your child passes that door. Kids in the community school will go to the left, and then to the right will be the students who are attending District 75 classrooms. So it's important for you to know why that is important, because if something's going on, if you have issues with the school and you want to go above to the principal because you feel they're not listening to you, the administrative part for your child is going to be District 75. It's not going to be the principal, the administrator of that school. You're going to have to reach out to District 75 and try to submit your concerns to the superintendent or whoever, but in District 75. So it's important for you to know where your child is going. We also, District 25 is in charge of providing services in hospitals programs. So if your child have this happens a lot with kids with mental health issues or with physical disabilities. They're in the hospital a lot of times, so that when they receive like teachers and services there is through District 75 as well. Then we have District 79, which is District 79 who have programs like for students who are over age, undercredited, or students unfortunately have gone in a different path and they have been using drugs or alcohol and they drop out, and then they want to come back in and they still, want to go to the school and they still have the age to go to the school. So District 79 have those programs, the Restart program and all those programs. We also have the system of charter schools. So to be clear, charter schools are public schools. However, the point here about charter school, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, is that, the system is a system of lottery in order to enter. And sometimes when you win the lottery and you go to register your child and they look at the child's IEP, they will say to you, oh, I'm sorry, you won the lottery, but we cannot accommodate, your child because this school doesn't have a class of 12 or something like that. So pay attention to that. And then we have the system, what we call like non-public schools. And in this field, there is a set of schools that we call non-public schools, which are private schools, and then we call the private schools. It's a little bit confusing, I know, but the non-public schools are literally schools who actually have an agreement with New York City for payment, meaning that if your child ends in one of those non-public schools, then DOE is gonna pay. New York City Public Schools is gonna pay them. And then we have the system of private schools that says you can place your child here, but we don't want anything to do with New York City for payment. We don't have those agreements, okay? Okay, evaluations. So every 3 years, your child is entitled to an evaluation. That evaluation is called a psycho-educational evaluation. That happens every 3 years. And I want to stress this. Every 3 years, your child must have a psycho-educational evaluation. However, if things are not working for your child, if your child is struggling, if you see that he or she is not making enough progress, if you see that this program perhaps is not the program for your child, you don't have to wait 3 years. You can ask for a re-evaluation at any time. So last year, for example, they did an evaluation for your child, then comes next year and you're like, you know what? This is not working. The setting is not working. The IEP is not working. Let me request a re-evaluation. You're entitled to do that. Typically, after an evaluation, it comes an IEP. The whole process takes 60 school days, not calendar days, school days. So be aware of that. That is a long process. So once again, if your child is struggling, don't wait a lot, because even if things could change for your child, it's still going to take a long time. So you want to act early. To the contrary, also, don't be asking for reevaluations every year, because if nothing has changed and your child, that's not going to render new information. What you could do is that if the psychoeducational didn't render new information, and you know that your child is still having trouble, that your child is not making progress, you can ask the school for an independent evaluation, a neuropsychological pay for DOE, because your child's still struggling and they keep evaluating and your child is still not making progress. Now, I want to make a parenthesis here, because once again, don't focus on somebody else's child. Oh, my friend's child have autism, the same thing that my child has, and why he's able to read, mine is not able to read, the school is doing something wrong. Before you conclude that, I want you to investigate and evaluate so you can really understand what's going on with your child. That's gonna be your tools. Once you reevaluate and once you do a neurological evaluation, neuropsychological evaluation, then you might be able to understand why your child is not learning at the same pace. Every child is capable to learn. Kids with disabilities are capable to learn, but not everyone could learn at the same pace. So the more information that you have about your child, and talk to those professionals. Usually when you do outside evaluations, they give you recommendations, and that is for a reason. So talk to those evaluators so you're able to understand what's going on, okay? Near alternative assessment. I'm putting this information here because when the kids are not able to test, and that's usually after 3rd grade, if they do a set of evaluations and then sometimes you get a paper at home and said, well, your child, we're going to put in an alternative assessment, that decision should have been because they already have evaluated your child, assessed your child, and due to your child limited cognitive abilities combined with behaviors, physical limitations. So it's a whole host of things that need to happen before they check alternative assessment. So why is this important? Because if your child is checked, alternative assessment on their IEP, that means that they're not gonna receive a high school diploma. And that's why that's important, because as a parent, you need to know that information. You don't understand how many calls I get that the child is already in 12th grade with services and they're not going to get a diploma and the family never knew. They get a certificate. It used to be called the IEP certificate. Now they call it something else because parents are offended by that, but it's the same thing. So it's important for you, if you have a child who is in alternative assessment, to understand what it is, and that DOE, New York City's public schools, have gone through a process before they check that bus, okay? And I have the information here. You're gonna get this information for those of you who are on Zoom. And you can read a little bit more, even have an eligibility criteria. I also give you a link so you can inform yourself about why is it that your child is in this alternative assessment. On the other hand, there are many kids with disabilities that are going to be in alternative assessment because they, due to their severe disabilities, they're not able to test. Okay. So now these are the different types of evaluations. We have a psychoeducational, which is the one that is done every 3 years. But once again, things are not working, you can always ask for a reevaluation. Then we have a neuropsychological evaluation. Those are done from outside providers. New York City public schools do not do neurological evaluations. However, you can request for them to pay for one. And if you are approved, then they will give you a list of evaluators that receive their payment. Then we have a speech, occupational, physical, assisted technology. And a lot of these evaluations, what they want to assess is intellectual functioning. Many, many times, once again, the parents call me with concerns, my child is not making progress, I don't know what's going on. And I typically ask them, do you know your child's IQ? That's because there are evaluations that will test the intellectual functioning, and the parents don't know. Especially when a child has like a developmental disability or intellectual disabilities, the parents follow that not understanding. When they tell you your child have intellectual disability, that means that they have a low IQ, and you need to know that. So once again, most of the time, New York City public schools don't test for IQ, but sometimes, you bump into a psychologist that will do like a full body of tests, and then, they will give you like a general number for you to know. But if you want to know these details, because this is important, you can always request a neuropsychological evaluation or go outside of DOE and put your child in a waiting list. I know people tell me, oh, I didn't put it because it's a year. We know time flies. So you can put it now, and then a year will come, and then you will have that information about that child. Many, many hospitals have those services. Then they also can test for language functioning, that test functioning. So it's a whole host of evaluations that exist. And I would lean into the more that you know about your child, the better for you to advocate. What is an IEP? We've been talking about this. So the IEP is really the document that you and the school will create when you meet. Okay, there is no way that you can accept that the minute that you have the IEP meeting, the IEP is already created. No, they're supposed to create an IEP after an IEP meeting, but talk to you about everything that is gonna go into that IEP. They're gonna include disability classification, classroom size and settings, supports, goals. This document is the Bible of your child's education. Okay? This is the document that is gonna have everything that your child needs in the school setting. Please read it. Please read it. I have a whole bunch of parents that call me, they take the IEP, they put it in an envelope, never look at it. You must look at it. If you speak another language, they have it in different languages. You can request that. So you will understand what is in there, because that's what they're supposed to be providing. Everything that is on the IEP in terms of services, program, setting must happen. So for example, and this is a very common call, oh, the speech therapist got married, she's having a baby, she has been gone, nobody's providing my child a speech therapy. Well, you should ask who is going to provide this child with the speech therapy. If the school tells you, oh, we don't have anyone, give me the vouchers so I could get those services outside here. Because you don't have someone and my child doesn't need to get behind because you don't have that services. If your child have a speech twice a week on the IP, that must happen. Whether the speech therapy is there or she's gone, this is the school obligation, and it's New York City Public School obligation to provide that. So if you see that they're not doing anything about that, you ask for those vouchers. And if they tell you, well, we're trying to hire someone, we're in the second, and if you want to wait, when they hire someone, they have to give you all those back. For example, if your child received speech therapy twice, and it took them 3 months to hire, and your child missed 6, 7, 10 sessions, then they maybe want to add once more a week to make up for the ones that they didn't do. And you don't even have to wait those 3 months. You can ask for vouchers and then go ahead and set that up, okay? What are the specialized programs? So the other part is that New York City, and I've been an advocate, special education coordinator for a long time, have tried to integrate other programs within the public schools to help students with disabilities. So now we have other programs. Some of them functions in the district schools, District 1 to 32, and others function within District 75, even though District 75 is already a specialized program, they also integrate other programs. So now we have the NEST, we have the Horizon, we have ACES, we have AIMS. So we do have a lot of programs that perhaps the school have not offered them to you, but you should know that they exist. And that is important because sometimes I get calls, and then when I do the assessment for the case, I be like, this child could be probably meet eligibility for NEST program. Why have anyone, offer you that? And then the parents, I know, I never heard of that. I don't know that existed. Well, you're here today. So now you know that this exists. I'm giving you the program details, the criteria, and all that for you to investigate further. Typically, if you want or you see that your child may be eligible for these programs, you need to talk to the school for them to start the process. They say you can start it yourself, but to be honest, sometimes when you write to NEST or whatever, they not even answer unless it's from the school. So if the school is in agreement and they say, you know what, we didn't realize, oh no, we forgot or whatever, they could help you with this process, okay? But they do the NEST program, the Horizon program, they do their own assessment, and then they will let you know if your child could enter those programs. Okay, and that's true for ACES also. The ACES program is in a community program, but it only goes to, I believe, second grade. So once again, if your child is in ACES after second grade, then he or she have to transition to other programs. But these are specialized programs that you should know about, and you can even check to see if your child is eligible for these programs, okay? So now, what should I do if I get calls about my child's behavior? So number one, if that happened once, your child maybe that day is upset, maybe hates something that is not working, then you can, go and picking up like any parent will do. But if this is daily, if this is something you don't have to pick up your child, meet with the teacher and say, you know what, I think that what we need to do is a functional behavioral assessment to assess what's going on with my child. It may be that transitions are difficult, typically for kids with autism, transitions are difficult. So perhaps they can do a functional behavioral assessment, and they could do a behavioral plan, and part of the behavioral plan will be like before the teacher said, well done, we're going to move to a different activity, perhaps your child will get a warning. Michael, we're going to finish in 5 minutes. So, you need to stop drawing in 5 minutes. So that will be part of the plan. But once again, the plan is not calling you. The plan will be do an assessment and do an intervention in school. Okay, and that becomes part of the IEP. If your child have behaviors, if your child elopes, if your child is not able to sit down for long periods of time, if your child is falling asleep in the school, all that we require a functional behavioral assessment to see what's going on, okay? And it will become part of the IEP. Suspensions. So the only thing that I'm gonna say about suspensions is that because your child has a disability doesn't mean that they're not gonna get suspended. Kids with disabilities get suspended. However, what it needs to happen is that they need, if the suspension is more than 10 consecutive days, they must have a manifestation hearing. Meaning this is a hearing in which we need to prove that what your child did is related to the disability and therefore they should not be suspended, okay? However, I have cases in which the child has been suspended because whatever she did has nothing to do with her disability, okay? There's a lot of information here about suspensions. I want to be clear that my agency, the New York Lawyers for the Public Interest, do not represent kids in suspensions because we don't have the bandwidth. But there are other agencies that have people right there to help you with suspensions. If you don't know where to go, who to call, you can call us and we can give you referrals of other nonprofits that actually, could represent your child in a suspension hearing. Okay, I also include a lot of information about mental health. There's no secret that, we are as a country in a crisis in terms of mental health. New York tends to have a lot of resources, and I want you to learn those resources. There are a lot of adolescents going through it. So you can call New York City Well, and they have a lot of services. And I have a few other information about mental health and access to mental health services. Then is the section 504, which this refers to anti-discrimination laws and accommodations. It's really for students who don't need an IEP, but they need accommodation. Typically, a lot of my students who have like ADHD, and they see a psychiatrist, they're on medication, they on track, but they might need, because one of the issues, like they get distracted really easy, they will have accommodations such as taking tests, in a different room, or being provided extra time for tests. So these kids are not kids with IEP, these kids are with a 504 plan. I have more information, people, wanted, or that's something that they think that the child could benefit from, is here. Okay, so chancellor's regulations are very clear about corporal punishment and verbal abuse. And the reason for that I include this is because I know parents of kids with disabilities are very fearful if something's going to happen to them in school, but there are regulations about it. So the most important thing that I want to share with you is that if your child comes home and your child is nonverbal, not able to tell you what happened, take pictures of the injuries. Immediately call the school, even if the school is closed, email the principal, email someone about what happened, because the school have the duty to investigate of what's going on. There is also a line that you can call if you suspect, and this is not the first time that something is happening in school and the school is not doing anything, or even if the principal is telling you that, oh, I would think another student did it, they could always do an investigation. So you will see here, for those who are in Zoom, there is a telephone number. If you don't know the telephone number, you can always call 311 and say, my child came home, with bruises, with scratches, and I want to submit a complaint. And they will connect you to what is called the Office of Special Investigations. And the Office of Special Investigations will create, a complaint based literally online. These are like online complaints. And then the principal of the school will get that information. And then if it's a school-based investigation, the principal will start an investigation. Now, if you suspect that was the principal who did it, obviously you need to put that in your complaint, said, I think was the principal, so somebody else will be doing the investigation. But it's a process to this. There is regulations about this. I have someone who called me, I don't know, last week, and this thing happened like a year ago. Don't wait a year. And now the other part, if you consider the injury severe, you can always take your child to the doctor and say, this is what happened, and the doctor will note that, because that will come part of the file. That will come part of the investigation. Now, I also know that this is really, really traumatizing for you as a parent, but you have, if you really want an investigation, you have to complain. I know with, for my immigrant parents, sometimes we live in a different times and we want to stay quiet. But once again, if this happens to your child, you need to speak up, and some investigation needs to happen, okay? Okay, who is in charge of charter schools? So once again, charter schools are public schools. So in terms, and it's kind of odd, I think, but that's how it's here in New York. Even though your child goes to a charter school, the development of the IEP is between the charter school and the Committee of Special Education, which is someone from New York City Public Schools. Now, when the charter school fails to provide services, usually if you're gonna go to an impartial hearing, the person that you're gonna bring to is gonna be New York City Public Schools. So once again, we need to learn about these systems. It's a little bit complex. Now, sometimes parents have complaints about charter school culture, the teachers are mean and all that. Those complaints will not go to DOE. Every charter school is part of a network, and that network has a board, and they will have a chair, and they should tell you where to complain. A lot of the charter schools have posting in the website, who you're supposed to call if you have a complaint. So once again, those complaints goes to the network that they belong to. In terms of programs and services, when you meet the IP and the services come from DOE. Okay, so it's a little bit confusing. Now, the other part that I have to say is that we as an advocates for kids with disabilities, our focus is not charter school, private school, public school. Our focus is what your child needs in whichever system. If your child has disabilities and he's doing well in a charter school, fine, perfect. But if your child is not doing well and you have your child there because you have other 3 kids that go there, we're gonna let you know. We're gonna let you know, well, this child school is not appropriate for your child because your child needs a different setting. So once again, we advocate for the child's benefit, not for any particular setting. There is more information about charter schools for those of you who want to read later. And now I'm gonna move to transition planning. So transition planning is also a law. It's part of the IDEA, and kids in New York who are 14 and older should start having transition planning. It becomes part of the IEP. It's important because at that age, if your child has been in school, it's a lot of decisions that you need to make. One of them is that, okay, at this point is a fork. Should I continue on the strong academic path, even though my child is stressed, overwhelmed, and he's not able to keep up? Or should I continue with the academic path that is gonna really put my child in a good place for adulthood, integrating vocational programs, doing more basic math and basic writing and reading? So there are a lot of programs and services here in terms of transition that you need to explore to see what's going to be the best path for your child. Not every child will be able to graduate, but a lot of kids are be able to benefit from those other programs to become adults with skills. So this is really the time in which you have to have an honest conversation with yourself, with the family, with the father, with the other kids, about where we're gonna go from here, okay? But once again, that's also a conversation with the school. And sorry to say, New York City does not do a great job in terms of transition planning. I have seen IPs with transition planning that I said, like, who put this here? This is almost the border of ridiculous. But once again, we need to learn about transition. We actually have fact sheets about transition for you to understand clearly. If you need those, you can contact me and be more than happy so you can get educated about how this is done and what's the obligation of New York City, and also explore other programs. I mean, once again, there's a lot of things out there that we don't know and we should know. And I also give you some guidelines also for those of you that your child has not been enrolled in OPWDD for whatever reason, this is a good time also to start enrolling. If you realize through the transition planning that your child is going to transition to adult services, day program, ComHab, all those things are he or she has to be eligible for those services. And right now, as we stand, it takes like a year for eligibility. So if you don't know about what OPWD is and what it does, please reach out so you can learn and your child could benefit, because the least thing that you want is your child to be ending school at whatever age, 18, 19, 20, 21, and for some kids now 22, and then you have no idea where we're going to go from here, because your child is going to be sitting at home with no services and most likely losing what he or she has learned. So once again, OPWDD eligibility is important. Even if he or she wasn't eligible before, try again. I provided with information in the chat about the Ombudsman program, which is a program that helps families to talk about, for those of you who are enrolled, trying to enroll, they talk to you about services, they talk to you about issues, they, talk to you. There are a program, specifically Ombudsman program, IDDO, that would talk to you about what's going on. If you're already enrolled with OPWD or you're trying to enroll, where to go. They give you resources, they give you referrals, they give you a lot of information. So please keep that in mind. I put the information on the chat for you to grab. It's an excellent program. There are a lot of resources for transition, as I mentioned. Now we're going to talk about private school, because this is a big ticket item. So once again, I want to be clear, as agency, as the New York Lawyers for the Public Interest, our education program focus on what is it's going to work for the child in whichever system, private, public, charter, doesn't matter to us. When we read the information, we're going to talk to you about, all those things that we see in your child's file, and we kind of help you along the way. So for private school placement, I get those calls. This is like number one calls, along with lack of services, lack of speech and all that, is private school. I want my child to go private school. So I also want to be honest, and if you and I want our child to go to private school, totally nobody's business. I could pull out my child today from public school and place in any private school I wanted to. The issue here is when I want New York City to pay. If I want New York City to pay, then the conversation goes in a different way, okay? So how do I get my child to private school? There are certain things. The easiest one is deferral to central based support team. Why is that the easiest? because when you meet with a team at school and they all said, Mom, I think that your child will be better served in a non-public school, bingo for you. Because that means that they're going to take the information, the IP, send it to the central-based support team. Support team is going to compile information and they're going to start looking for a non-public school for your child. Now, the central-based support team is only going to look at schools that have contracts with DOE for payment only. And I want to be clear, these contracts are for payment only, meaning that New York City public schools cannot tell a school, private school 1, 2, 3, oh, pay my student and also do this and do that. No, that entity, that private school entity, they have their own assessment, their own review, their own thing, and they will determine whether or not your child is a student that is for their program. And DOE have nothing to say about that. The only thing that DOE is gonna say is like, here's the check. Okay, so I want to be clear because I get those calls also. Oh, I want this school and they told me they cannot take my child and all that, and DOE didn't do anything. Well, DOE cannot, this is a private entities. It's like a private business. So think about that way. The other fastest method that people get to private school is Nickerson letters, which I call it a dinosaur. Nobody gets those because I've seen a couple of years ago, by the way, but not like they used to be, because this is based on a technicality. It has nothing to do with education. It has everything to do with a technicality. For example, if every child who is entering assistance is supposed to get a placement letter by August 15. If they fail to provide with a placement by August 15, then you can ask for a Nickerson letter. However, this is how it works. You get a Nickerson letter, you can place your child in a non-public school. You start looking in September or in August. These schools already fill up by December a year before. So it's going to be really, really difficult for you to find a seat. In the meantime, also, New York City Public School is doing the work and looking at the IP and see where is a seat that we can place this child. So if they find a seat before you find one, then you have to take what they find. If it is in accordance with the IP. Also, if you're super lucky and you were able to place your child in one of those non-public schools for this year because of that technicality, next year, I assure you, they're going to send you a letter, we found a school for you. So that's the end of that private, non-public school, private school, okay? So once again, because it's not based on educational need, it's based on a technicality that they failed to offer you something. Other ways that we can get to private school, some is called Cutter, which has a reimbursement hearing. Literally, I'm sick and tired of New York City public schools. I take my child, place in a school, you know, in a wonderful school in the mountains or whatever, and then I take New York City to impartial hearing for them to pay me for my child. And then we have the pre-reimbursement hearing. The pre-reimbursement is asking for money even before that happened, citing that, you know, you don't have anything in your system. However, I don't have money to sign contracts or to do a down payment. Therefore, I'm asking you to do that for me. So, and the more details here, you can actually read all of them and see if something catch your attention. What do I do if I don't like what is on the IP? What do I do if I been fighting with the school about adding a speech therapy? What do I do if I went to the IP and I don't like that they offer the same thing that is not working? So you have different choices. So one of the choices is mediation. And mediation is underutilized, I think. Mediation is a way in which, if you already talk to this school teacher, psychologist, principal, even the superintendent, the district, nobody's paying attention, you could always request a mediation. These agencies here that do mediation, they have nothing to do with with New York City Public Schools, and I want to be clear. These are independent nonprofits that do their work the same way that we, New York lawyers, do nonprofit work and legal aid and legal services. These agencies do the same. So the way that it works is that you will contact them to their website or call them, and you will say, you know what? I've been fighting with my school, and they not listening. I want my child in a smaller class because the big class is too overwhelming, blah, blah, blah. So they will create the requests, and then they will contact DOE, which actually, this is, what do you call it? I mean, they could say we are gonna go to the, or not. So DOE could say that, but most of the time they go, they send someone, and then there's a mediator that is not there for either party, independent person that will listen both parties and try to mediate about the issue. Okay, once the session is done, a contract is signed saying that, okay, we agree to this, that, and the other, and then you take that to the school, and if it changes in setting, in placement, then you take that to the school, and they're supposed to add that or to update your IB in accordance of with that agreement. Great way to solve issues here. Once again, Houston is one in each borough, usually great people, so use them to resolve issues, because there are many times, I know, because I have parents who are overwhelmed, stressed, they call us, we cannot take on it, and then we tell them, you can go to a mediation about this if you wish. It's faster and it's more amicable, okay? Then we have impartial hearing. Impartial hearing is like court. It's literally court. You will have a person who acts like a judge, which is officer. You will have to submit evidence. You are also able to submit witnesses, and it's full force. I also want to note here that we as an agency, and I could bet that most agencies, will only do impartial hearings that we request. If you call me today and said, oh, I have an impartial hearing October 15, can you represent us, New York lawyers? We will say, I'm sorry, we cannot. We only work in impartial hearings that we request. Okay, because we need to do an assessment of the case. Impartial hearing is not like I bring someone who never, and then let's see how it goes. It's actually preparation, because it's like court. Now, I also can say that a lot of the legal service systems are overwhelmed, overworked, and sometimes we don't have time to be taking on impartial hearings, and parents could go on their own. If you prepare yourself, you can go on your own. I have stories of parents have been very successful in impartial hearings, but you have to prepare yourself, okay? And I mean, there are things that you can ask in impartial hearings, such as like a placement. If you want your child, you think that, public school is not offering what your child needs, and, your child needs different or other services, impartial hearing is the way. In mediation, because it's easier, you can ask for a new speech evaluation, because the old one only provides 1 day a week, and you think that child needs more, so, and nobody's listening. So there are different things that you will ask from, impartial hearing versus mediation. Okay, I'm giving you a lot of resources for those of you who are in Zoom. This is the end of the presentation. So now I want to be clear. If you're gonna ask me a question, remember what Doris says in the beginning. This is an open forum. It's live streaming. There's strange people in this forum. I don't know who they are. You don't know who they are. So if you believe that your question is a personal question that needs personal attention, please call us. We assess everyone. 212-244-4664. And this is the New York Lawyers for the Public Interest. We do have a special education program, and we assess every caller. So if that is the situation, I want you to post and don't give me any personal information throughout your questions. When you call me, we can talk. It's confidential. We don't share anyone's information, but it's an open forum. I don't want people to give me personal information about their child, where they live, and all that. I don't want that information to be aired here. Now, if you have questions about the content of this presentation, absolutely. We're gonna go to questions. I don't know, Doris, how do you want to do this? Are you gonna read from the chat, or are people gonna come live, or?
Yes, hi. So yes, I'm gonna read off from the Q&A. We did have one pre-registration question that maybe you can answer. Um, let's see. So I requested the Department of Education arrange for for a psychiatrist to support my child's needs. I have been waiting for a response in September, and I do have an attorney. However, I haven't received any guidance. Can you please advise on the next steps?
Okay, the next step is that already have somebody representing you. They're supposed to be guiding you. They're supposed to be supporting you. I don't know if you're already in contract with that attorney, but if the attorney is not working, you can always stop that contract and look for somebody else. Because, I mean, nobody else is gonna give you any legal advice, because everyone is gonna tell you, talk to your attorney. Now, if you want to end that relationship with that attorney, that's fine, but then you need to do that in the right way. Nobody's
Right.
gonna touch, or give legal advice without knowing what's going on with that other attorney.
Thank you, Paula. What do I do when the school denies me the neuropsychological evaluation for my child?
Okay, if the school deny you in writing, look at the reason why, and you can also do mediation or impartial hearing to ask for it. Now, you really have to be very specific about what do you think this is helpful. Also, like I said, there are many hospitals and other places that do neuropsychs that you can actually reach out to have one done.
Thank you. So this is a comment and a question. This was an amazing session. For the first 3 years, I stayed quiet because I didn't know how to speak up. But after learning so much and applying it with my own child, I feel called to give back and help other parents find their voice too. If someone wants to do this for long term, not just as a parent but as a professional advocate, what trainings or organizations would you recommend?
That I don't know. I don't know how people get trained to be a professional advocate. I know like a lot of the professional advocates come from the fact that they've been doing this for their own kids. However, it's really a good question. Next time that I bump into a profession, and I say this because I come from a different angle. Like this is like a legal office, so this is like different. But the next time that this is a good question, actually, never thought about that. Next time that I bump into one of those amazing advocates that don't come from the legal profession, I'm gonna ask them where they got the training. That's a good question.
Thank you. Oh, somebody said parent member at Include NYC.
Oh, good, thank you. So now we know Include NYC does the training.
Alrighty. That's it on the Q&A. I don't see any more questions. I don't see any on Facebook either. So with that, I want to thank you so much for joining us. We hope that everybody enjoys today's presentation on special education, know your rights. A special thanks to our presenter for leading this webinar on such an important topic. So thank you, Paola. We encourage the audience to stay for a few minutes. I will be placing a survey on the chat. If you can kindly just stay for a few minutes to complete it, that'd be great. And again, thank you for joining us today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone, and I hope I could see who's sending all those hearts. Like it warms my heart to see those hearts, but I don't see who is doing that. But thank you so much for the love, and thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate your time and your effort, and I hope this is helpful. And once again, if you have any questions or this trigger you to think about, perhaps I could have a legal issue here, please call us, New York Lawyers for the Public Interest. And thank you, Doris and Synergia, for trusting me to do this. I love it. It's one of my favorite things to do. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. We love having you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye-bye.
And thank you to our interpreter. Bye bye.